7 is next. Okay, 7. We did not cover one of these examples in class, so I'll go through this real step by step for you. The first thing I'm going to do with this function is I'm going to try to rewrite this so that it looks a little better. Okay, the way this is written in the book, I don't know, this might have thrown you. But I'm going to write this, instead of a slant line for division, I'm going to write it as 1 over 3 plus x. And then minus 1 over 3. And actually, I'm not going to write the x here for a little bit, because I just want us to concentrate on the numerator. Okay, now, in this case, we're not going to use the conjugate and we're not going to factor it. But we are going to simplify it. That's the main idea, is simplifying your function, not necessarily just factoring it or just using your conjugate. So when you look at your numerator, I hope that you recognize that you have something that's complex and you need to make this more simple. You need to subtract these two fractions so that you can make this, instead of two fractions, just one fraction, and then we can go from there. Now, we know that we cannot subtract these fractions because they do not have a common denominator. But we can go in here and we can say, if I were to multiply my 1/3 by 3 plus x over 3 plus x, okay, 1, right, in the form of 3 plus x, this will give me a denominator of 3 times 3 plus x. So that kind of gets me closer to a common denominator because I've got the 3 plus x in there. But in this first fraction, I want to also multiply it by 1 in the form of 3 over 3. So this gives me a common denominator. Okay, now I can subtract these. I can say this is just 3 times 1, or 3, over 3 times 3 plus x, minus 1 times 3 plus x, okay, all over our common denominator of 3 times 3 plus x. Okay. Now we have something that we can subtract. So I'm going to go down here on my paper. I'm going to rewrite remember, I'm just working with my numerator. And I'm going to rewrite this as 3 minus, in this parenthesis, 3 plus x. I'm going to distribute that negative sign. Okay, this is going to be 3 minus 3 minus x. And that's all over my common denominator of 3 times 3 plus x. Just working with our numerator here. Let's simplify this now. We did some work to it, now let's simplify it. 3 minus 3 is 0. Okay, minus x. And then we have 3 times 3 plus x. Now, all that is in a fraction. Let me draw this fraction bar thicker so that we can really distinguish the difference. Okay. So, again, did some work. I'm going to go back and just write my denominator, x, just bring it over. That focus for you. Now down here I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, now in this fourth fraction, I have one fraction in my numerator versus two fractions in my numerator. See the difference between this one and that one? This one's simplified. Okay, and from here there's a couple different ways you can do this, just depending on how comfortable you are with dividing fractions. But we can, because this bar here is a division bar, we can write this as negative x over 3 times 3 plus x divided by the x, okay, or x over 1. So from here to here, I didn't change the problem, I just rewrote the division. And so now, maybe you can recognize we've got division of two fractions. And we're going to divide this by multiplying by the reciprocal of our second fraction. So this is going to be negative x in my numerator over my denominator, 3 times 3 plus x, okay, multiplied times x, which to get this x, I flipped this fraction to its reciprocal. So instead of x over 1, it's 1 over x. And our 1 is up here in the numerator, and there's our x. Okay. Now, I'm going to do just a little bit more simplifying here, because I can see that I have a common x in my numerator and my denominator. And I can divide those out, and I'm left with 1 over 3 times 3 plus x. And our goal always is to come up with something that we can take the limit of by plugging x in, plugging our c value in for x. Let's see if we can do that. We've got 1 over 3 times 3 plus x. Instead of x, I'm going to write a 0 there. So this is 1 over 3 times 3, or 1 over 9. Now when I look back here, I see that I canceled out that x, but notice the x in the denominator is a positive x, and this is a negative x. So I still have this negative 1 in my numerator. And I can see that I did not carry that through when I worked that out. So this is a negative 1 because the numerator x was a negative x. So this is going to give us the negative 1/9. All right, 63. And so we've got 63 and 65. 63 looks very similar to 53. Organize that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to simplify this rational function by multiplying by the conjugate. I know you guys are going to be tired of hearing that after a while. Multiply by the conjugate, which is x plus 2 plus square root of 2 over x plus 2 plus square root of 2. And then that simplifies. My first terms in my numerator are just going to be x plus 2. My outer and inner terms cancel, and my last terms, this is a negative times a positive, so that gives us a negative. And the square root of 2 squared cancels out the radical and leaves us with the 2 that's inside. And my denominator, I'm going to write in factored form. And just continue to simplify this. In my numerator, I've got a +2 and a -2. Those will cancel. That'll leave me with x in the numerator and x in the denominator. Okay, common x's cancel. I'm left with 1 over x plus 2 under square root and square root of 2. Now, so let's see if we can plug 0 into this. Plug 0 in for x, we are going to get, it's going to be square root of 2 plus square root of 2. Remember what I said earlier, these are going to behave like variables so that when we add them, it's going to be 2 square root of 2. I'm going to rationalize that denominator because it's improper to have the square root symbol in your denominator of your answer. So to do that again, we're going to, whatever the square root is, we're going to multiply by it. And because I'm multiplying it on bottom, I need to do the same thing on top. Okay, but it's really just a 1, right? Just 1 in the form of square root of 2. 1 times square root of 2, square root of 2 in the numerator. The denominator is going to be 2 times, and this is square root of 2 times square root of 2, gives us just 2. Okay, and that simplifies to square root of 2 over 4. All right, last question, 65.